So what plays at the beginning of this is going to be the result of this exercise we're doing. Also, I'm not going to do anything past notation, playback, and sketches in this. And I will use the keyboard for the people who cannot read. This video came about from an exercise I would often give people to encourage them to start using stuff other than diatonic tones, in other words, chromatic tones, and in this case, using all 12 tones. Using chromaticism gives your melodies a whole new depth, and especially with playful things, but that's not always the case with just playful. So we're going to use all 12 tones of the chromatic scale. What we're going to do is also use a typical minor progression. Well, it's typical to me anyway. So the progression will be diatonic. The melody is going to use some chromaticism. Now, by my version of diatonic, I mean any form of minor, any chord form of minor. They all belong to minor, whether it's melodic, harmonic, or natural, because it gives you way more chord choices than just being diatonically locked to one scale. So we're going to use 1, 4, 1, very typical, 5, flat 7, the deceptive cadence move to the flat 6 chord, flat 3, 4, let's use an augmented 6, 1. So that's part of chromatic harmony. I have a course on that. But we're using it to create a half cadence. So what I'm going to do is just start on the 5th of the 1, use the chromatic neighbor tone. The root of the 4 chord, chromatic neighbor tone. Actually, I'll just keep the same scheme up. So on the 5, chromatic neighbor tone, on the 6, chromatic neighbor tone, on the 3, chromatic neighbor tone, etc., etc. We'll just use this falling scheme like this. And we'll do it over a very typical backing like this. And this will give us a very comical, kind of playful mood. I don't know, picture some goofy villain in like a Christmas movie sneaking around. I'm going to use the inversion of the augmented 6 chord. If you don't know you can do that, you can do that. That's part of chromatic harmony. And if you're a big fan of Tchaikovsky like me, he used that quite often in place of secondary dominance and diminished chords. So here it is written out for you. I wrote out a little basic scheme. I'll let it play back in the notation. Gave it a tempo. I wanted it to gradually speed up. Take notice that the spelling of the German 6 and slash chords as opposed to notation is different. On the 1 chord, I'm just going to use the flat 5 neighbor tone. On the 4, I use the chromatic neighbor tone of B. Now on the 1 again, I don't have to use any chromaticism. On the 5 chord, flat 5. On the flat 6 chord, a flat 3 chromatic neighbor tone. On the flat 3, chromatic flat 5. Don't need one on the 4 chord. That's what we'll stick in the augmented 6 chord. Kind of a changing tone feel there. Surrounding the D note with chromaticism. Okay, so I basically know what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with a pickup like that, just arpeggiating. I'm going to pause this and write it out. Okay, here we go. Because I'm doing this over time, what I did was give it a little scheme now. Acceleration, crescendo, and slowing down at the half cadence. So let's listen to our sketch. So I have a little sketch to work with now. And let's observe a few things. Let's compare chromaticism to no chromaticism. It almost sounds wrong now. And even less playful, because those chromatic notes really help with that aspect. Chromaticism. Notice this sounds much more right than the diatonic version. all 12 chromatic notes were used. So just playing the first part, chromaticism, no chromaticism. The chromaticism to me sounds much better and adds that extra spice and gives these melodies a little something special besides pure diatonic dependence. Interesting observation though, if you just play the first note of each bar, it's just walking down diatonically, just the first note of each bar of G natural minor. Gonna pause and sketch it out a little bit more. So here we go, a basic sketch. I just gave myself an orchestral sketch. Basically, it's just shorthanded for what I wanted to happen here. And we'll leave it at this. I'm not going to go any farther than this in the video. So a simple exercise could even turn into a really fun little part. I might even start working on a B section now after the half cadence. Maybe do typical film score stuff like a chromatic meeting away. Tritone away. Using the same motif and just a bunch of chromaticism, neighbor tones, etc. to maintain that playful feel. So this could be a transition. Let's go ahead and end. Here's a good challenge. Try to create a melody that uses all 12 tones as an exercise.